Start with contracting sprites. Chapter 261, Treasures Suitable for Crow and Butterfly. Su Hao glanced at his surroundings. They were all brown high walls, about 6 to 7 meters tall. He could only see a blue sky without any haze. Right in front of him was a building that looked like a palace. He crossed over the step and walked inside. After passing through a security gate, he kept walking forward. There were no windows on either side of the corridor. There was only light at the top giving off a gentle glow. Tap tap. Tap tap. The footsteps of the group of 20 people echoed as they walked straight to a closed metal door. The good seedlings for this batch. On the left side of the door, an old but energetic voice came from the room. Su Hao felt as if someone was looking at him. Then go. The silver metal door made a beeping sound and opened to the sides, revealing. It was still not a treasure vault, but a stairway leading down. Heavenly King Gong left the coral fairy snail in the corridor and took the lead to walk down the stairs. Su Hao and the others followed closely behind. The stairs formed the shape of the Chinese character Hui, return, spinning all the way down, circle after circle. For some reason, it felt like they were rushing to the mausoleum. But the walls around the stairs were embedded with shining crystals. The pale yellow light dispelled the darkness. Even though it kept descending, there was no overly sinister feeling. At most, just a little. Finally, they arrived at an unknown depth. What appeared in front of them was still a door. It wasn't a metal door, but a stone door. On both sides of the stone door were 2 tall stone sculptures in the shape of lions. That's not a rock. Su Hao just took a brief glance at the map when he saw the eyes of the stone lion on the right light up suddenly. In the dim yellow environment, they looked like 2 night luminescent pearls. It would be even more perfect if they were in the dark. The stone lion's eyes glowed, scaring several students into taking a step back. Heavenly King Gong said, "That's a housekeeper Suani. The one on the left is an evil warding lion tiger." From the outside, it was also a stone lion sculpture maintaining a squatting posture. But on closer look, there was a pair of small wings on the left and right of its neck. Both sprites evolved from stone lions in the same initial form. And they were all monarch rank sprites. Su Hao added in his heart. The housekeeper Suani's night luminescent pearl-like eyes swept across for a moment before dimming again. Its aura was gone, and it turned back into a sculpture placed in front of the door. But at the same time, crack, 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 the sound of moving gears mixed with buzzing sounds could be heard. In front of them, the stone door opened. What made Su Hao heave a long sigh of relief was that there was no wooden door, iron door, diamond door, or gold door behind the stone door. Only bright rays of various colors shone through the opening door, illuminating the underground space even more. That's... Senior Chinya covered her mouth. In front of them, the treasures were placed in a cabinet, as though they had arrived at a certain treasure museum. The difference was that most of the treasures in front of them glowed with the message saying "I'm very valuable." Heavenly King Gong looked at the students and said, "According to the rules, all of you have an hour to choose 1 or 2 treasures that you are interested in. But you can't touch them. You can only take out the treasures after you've truly confirmed them." As she spoke, she looked at Su Hao. Su Hao nodded, indicating that he understood. He was the one who could choose 2 treasures. But he only had an hour too. The others originally wanted to get some suggestions from Heavenly King Gong, but when they heard this, their expressions became conflicted. There was a dazzling array of treasures in front of them. How should they choose? Especially because they couldn't recognize most of the treasures inside. Zhang Zaihoki and the other seniors all looked at Heavenly King Buletin for help. Heavenly King Buletin twisted his neck. "Don't ask me, I won't understand even if you ask. However, there are only 2 types of treasures. One is for wearing and the other is for swallowing. You just have to look for the attributes you want. Besides, there are brief descriptions of the treasures in front." Seniors. They were so dazzled by the treasures that they forgot to observe carefully. Shame, shame. When can I be as calm and indifferent as Junior Su Hao? In their eyes, the calm Su Hao at this moment was even more conflicted than them. Once a wood element sprite consumes the Millennium Tree Heart, it can improve its various qualities in all aspects without any side effects. Shocking! There's actually even a natural crystal. Oh, it was left behind by an extraordinary level sprite. What a pity, what a pity. That seems to be a water source essence. Swallowing it can permanently increase the power of water element unique skills, and the increase is not small. If he had a choice, he would definitely want all the treasures in front of him. Unfortunately, he could only choose two. This was a rare opportunity, he had to consider it carefully. The Dragon Nation's treasure vault isn't like the school's. I can't come here whenever I want. I have to choose the treasures right now, so I have to choose two treasures that will bring me the best benefits at the moment. Firstly, he eliminated the treasures which could increase his sprite's strength after swallowing. Without them, he wouldn't need to spend much time nurturing his sprites anyway. Treasures that could increase one's power were pretty good. Most of the invincible sprites at the same level consumed such treasures. But his sprites were already very strong, and their cultivation in all aspects were extremely perfect. If they swallowed these treasures, it would be a bit of a waste compared to other treasures. Then, the most valuable treasure to me is a treasure that can help my sprites evolve. For example, the materials needed for advanced evolution. If the value of the materials needed from the initial form to the first stage of evolution was 1, then the value of the materials needed from the first stage to the second stage of evolution was 3. There wasn't much difference between the two. But if it was an advanced evolution that broke through the sprite's own limits, the materials needed would be at least 100. The core materials were all very precious treasures. Su Hao wouldn't be surprised even if something he had never heard of appeared. In the future, even if he had the ability, he might not be able to get some treasures such as non-mainstream treasures. This was an opportunity. Dazed Crow, Butterfly, and the others are still quite a distance away from advanced evolution, but they can also start preparing for it. In any case, according to the estimation of my perfect cultivation plan, it won't take much time for them to grow to their limits. As for the dumb unicorn, we don't need it for the time being. We already have plans on how it can break through to the extraordinary level. It's the same for the big fat bear. After absorbing that crystal of nature, even if it wants to advance in the future, the difficulty level won't be too high. After all, the bridge is already set up, and the road is almost paved. He planned to choose the two treasures for Crow and Butterfly. He opened the interface and looked through the Dazed Crow's information. Advanced Evolution 1. Sun Evolution, Compatibility, 98%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. 2. Eternal Flame Evolution, Compatibility, 96%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. 3. Flaming Body Evolution, Compatibility, 91%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. Generally speaking, unless a certain evolution pathway has extremely great potential, I will definitely choose a pathway with a high compatibility score. Without any hesitation, he used 9 intelligence points to unlock the general introduction of all pathways. Instantly, information flowed into his mind. He opened his eyes and looked ahead without focus. In fact, he was constantly processing the information in his mind. After a while, the evolution of the indestructible flames and the body of flames are relatively more focused on life-saving abilities. I might really be able to write a whole paper on the fallen evolution alone. But the evolution of the sun is the most suitable evolution for the Dazed Crow's battle method. He walked to the area where fire element treasures were stored. The orange glow illuminated his face red. It was as if he was in a sea of flames, making him look extremely ceremonial. He glanced around and muttered in his mind. Unlock, Sun Evolution. Ding! With 11 intelligence points deducted, the plan has been unlocked. Instantly, information flooded into his mind. He closed his eyes, but in his mind, he saw the explosion of a dazzling sun. The cry was loud and clear. A big bird with much longer tail feathers had some gold sprinkled on its body. It rushed out of the flames, scattering endless light, as if illuminating the vast land. Blazing Sun Fire God Crow, Changeable. Chapter 262, Feathers and Pearls. Its evolved form was similar to the dazed crow's current appearance. But there was a huge difference between the inner cores. Just as the introduction said, the third stage evolved flaming spirit crow is born with a stronger light golden flame. The feathers on its body also contain extraordinary energy. If a feather is plucked, it can be used as a treasure to nurture fire element sprites. He recalled that when the dazed crow was just in its initial form, it had been nurtured for a period of time with the feather of a fire element sprite. At that time, the value of that feather was only slightly lower than the heart of secondary attributes. And if the dazed crow completed the sun evolution, by then, every feather on its body would be pretty good materials, right? A picture of dazed crow having its feathers plucked appeared in his mind. It was too beautiful. He shook his head to shake it off. He returned his gaze to the treasures around him. At the same time, he extracted the few treasures that were the most difficult to obtain in the sun evolution. Right now, he was analyzing the uses of those treasures in the evolution plan. There were mainly three types. Feather of the Fire God. Sun Essence. Flaming Crown. The names were just rough titles. What he was looking for was a treasure with similar functions and characteristics. The Flaming Crown is the hardest to find. I've never heard of it even though I'm so knowledgeable. The surroundings, he ignored the occasional ding-dong, intelligence points +1 sound. His gaze swept across the various treasures, searching for one that looked similar to the Flaming Crown in his plans. However, Su Hao was slightly disappointed. How is this the Dragon Nation's central treasury? But he was also clear that treasures must have a prerequisite to enter the treasury: those that were not needed, those that were used, and those that were left behind. If a Heavenly King tier treasure was discovered, it would had already been used. How could they possibly keep it until now? Even so, the area where fire element treasures were stored was not small. He walked back and forth twice. I did see 3 sun essences, but the quality isn't enough. In fact, it was enough for the sun's evolution. Unfortunately, he had a little OCD. The cultivation plan was perfect, and he wanted the evolution plan to be perfect as well. The quality of the sun's essence had to be higher. Full marks and above was the requirement, 70 to 80 points was not enough. He passed by treasures one by one, and when he saw something similar, he stopped, and took a few more looks at the interface. After a moment, he stopped in front of a cabinet on the left side of the fire element treasure area. Inside, a scarlet feather the size of an adult's arm was quietly placed there. The red feather bent slightly, and its every thread flowed with brilliance. Circles of red halos spread out, and most of them were blocked by the special cabinet, leaving only some red light shining out of it. It felt a little warm. Su Hao looked at the introduction on the bottom of the cabinet. Nameless red feather, a feather, condensed with a large amount of essence, obtained from a crown sprite. It wasn't an ordinary feather that was casually plucked from a sprite's body. It highlighted its characteristics: rare, precious. The information on the interface was more detailed. He glanced at it 4 to 5 to 6 times to confirm. The nameless red feather completely meets the feather of the fire god requirement for the sun's evolution. Well, there's no rush. We have to compare. He found 2 other feathers, also left behind by a crown sprite. One was dark red, while the other was brownish red. After comparing them, he still felt that the nameless red feather was the most suitable, and the most valuable. That was it. After selecting one treasure, Su Hao looked at the time. 32 minutes had already passed. We have to hurry up. If we still have time left after selecting, it's best to go through the whole treasure vault and get some intelligence points. He opened Butterfly's information and pulled down to the Advanced Evolution column. The pathways leading in different directions appeared in his eyes. Illusionary Evolution, 98%. Cloud Dream Evolution, 98%. Spiritual Evolution, 82%. Light Evolution, 76%. He still needed to use 9 intelligence points to obtain general information about the various pathways. But now, Su Hao hesitated. Both the Illusionary Evolution and the Cloud Dream Evolution are very suitable for Butterfly. Which one should I purchase? He thought for 2 seconds and made his choice. Since I can't make a decision, I shall buy all of them. He could only use one plan, so buying 2 was naturally a waste, but the evolution of Butterfly was the most important thing among spiritual life forms. Let it be a waste, even though he felt that it was indeed a waste. It was worth it. Unlock, Illusionary Evolution. Ding! With 11 intelligence points deducted, the plan is now unlocked. In an instant, countless information poured into his mind. His eyes closed unconsciously, and as if he was passing through a space-time tunnel, his vision exploded. Pavilion and jade buildings quickly formed like building blocks, with countless plants and flowers blooming. One moment, it was still a fake illusion, but the next moment, it became extremely real. He could feel the temperature of the torch, the thickness of the earth, the sprouts breaking out of the ground, water splashing towards him, and the gentle wind brushing past his face. Countless butterfly fairy-like figures flew out from various places. Their figures suddenly disappeared, then appeared, as if there were thousands of them. A few seconds later, the thousands of figures returned to one single figure. A butterfly fairy whose aura became increasingly illusionary and whose figure increased by 20 to 30 centimeters appeared leisurely. It made a crisp sound. Illusionary butterfly fairy, changeable. Su Hao opened his eyes and took a break. He let his brain rest for a moment before opening the interface again. Unlock, Cloud Dream Evolution. Ding! With 11 intelligence points deducted, the plan is now unlocked. Instantly, information flooded into his mind again. Within an hour, 3 very advanced evolution plans, with countless knowledge injected into them, made his brain somewhat swollen. Information was still being sent in, and he felt as though he was immersed in endless mist. It was misty and dreamy. At times, the butterfly fairy transformed into a tiger, lion, and leopard. At other times, a huge dragon could be seen flying out of the mist before hiding in the mist again. From time to time, he saw the clouds turning into sabers, swords, spears, and other weapons. From time to time, the mist turned into a hazy scene. It was like a dream, with a blurry figure shuttling through the scenes. With a thought, dream realms appeared. With a thought, the dream realms were destroyed like bubbles. In the end, the figure that appeared in his eyes was still covered in a thin layer of mist. It was hazy, but he could vaguely see that the butterfly fairy in front of him had also grown taller. That crisp and pleasant voice kept echoing in his mind. Cloud Dream Butterfly Fairy, changeable. Su Hao stood on the spot, his expression becoming more and more conflicted. He still couldn't decide which plan to use. Both development directions have great potential. One focuses on the application of illusion-changing abilities, while the other focuses on shuttling through dreams. But the 2 evolution forms also have something in common. For example, change. Illusions and reality were always changing, while dream realms were also always changing. There was one common material in both evolution plans. Transformation Pearl. Similar to the feather of the fire god, it was not only a material needed for evolution, it was also a high-level equipment for sprites. Coincidentally, he discovered a transformation pearl in the treasure vault. It's you. In the miscellaneous area, Su Hao stopped in front of a cabinet and looked inside. On the box was a pearl slightly bigger than a ping-pong ball. The sparkling white pearl looked like a jade. Although the pearl looked precious, it looked relatively ordinary among the pile of treasures emitting the message "I'm very valuable." Its level was slightly lower. The description in front of the cabinet was also vague and confusing. It's not the time for advanced evolution yet, but the two treasures can also be of great help to the increase in strength of Butterfly and Dazed Crow. 10 minutes later. Under Heavenly King Gong's planning procedure, Su Hao and the other students got the treasures they wanted one by one. Su Hao looked at the two items in front of him. The nameless red feather was stored in a long box half a meter long. When the lid was closed, no red light spread out. The transformation bead was simple. When he was playing with it in his hand, it was just a precious pearl without any special effects. When he mentioned that he wanted the transformation bead, Heavenly King Gong even specially mentioned, with the transformation bead, at first glance, it can extend many nature changes for the sprite, but the effect is weak and very invaluable. Do you still want to choose the transformation bead? Su Hao expressed his affirmation. He knew that Heavenly King Gong was right. The transformation bead could change the nature of a sprite's spiritual force. It was a very strong bug at first glance, but what if the effect of the change was very, very weak? It was tasteless to eat, but it was a pity to abandon it. But when Su Hao brought it over, its base function was also a condiment for Butterfly's evolution. Tisk, a main ingredient. Besides, Butterfly has already pretty much developed the sea serpent bead. Let's give it a transformation bead to study. Butterfly will definitely like it very much, yes. Chapter 263, Dumb Unicorn's Chance. Just like when they came, they boarded the Coral Fairy Snail and returned to the dormitory area of Dragon City University in just a few minutes. From this, it was deduced that the location of the treasure vault wasn't that far from Dragon City University. He was purely guessing instinctively. Once they returned to League Village, Zhang Zihuki and the others immediately called their sprites over. Among them, many chose treasures for swallowing. There was no sense of security if they held the treasures in their hands, so of course, they had to let their sprites absorb it immediately. In front of the villa, the senior's goat horn immortal was looking forward to it. Zhang Zihuki opened the small wooden chest he brought out of the treasure vault. For a moment, a thick green light burst out, and a ball of light the size of a basketball slowly floated out. The ball of light was like a living thing, beating, expanding, and contracting like a heart. On it were countless patterns that looked like blood vessels intertwining, giving off a strange vibe. But it was an extremely precious treasure, the Millennium Tree Heart. The goat horn immortal's eyes were fixed on the treasure. Its back didn't hunch anymore, and its legs became much more nimble. It suddenly rushed forward and let out a hurried cry. It abruptly hugged the Millennium Tree Heart. In an instant, countless green streams of light flowed into the goat horn immortal's body through the tree heart. Its beard flew up as its aura kept rising. The effect of the Millennium Tree Heart was immediate indeed. Not only that, the ceiling of goat horn immortal has also been raised a lot. For a period of time, it can be maintained at a rapid development stage. There was a limit to sprites. At the extraordinary level, many sprites near perfect cultivation also slowed down their development speed, even stopping at the primary and middle levels of extraordinary. At this point, they needed to consume treasures, raising the upper limit and breaking the limit. As long as a sprite swallowed enough treasures, it could slowly raise its innate life level. There was also a slight possibility of breaking through to the monarch rank in the future. Some people jokingly called the treasure swallowing game pseudo-advancement evolution. But for me, there's no need to do so. As long as my resources keep up, their development speed should not have any problem. Limit? Let's evolve then. If third stage evolution didn't work, then let's try fourth stage evolution. If fourth stage evolution didn't work, well, he didn't know whether there was a fifth stage evolution. If there really was one, then the strength of the sprite, I'm afraid. He shook his head, not thinking about things that were too far away. He called for Dazed Crow and Butterfly through the contract. Ding! Butterfly, which you called, is currently busy. Please call again later. Su Hao was rendered speechless. After a moment, a big red bird descended from the sky and folded its wings, but waves of wind continued to blow, until his hair became a little messy. Once the Dazed Crow arrived, its reaction was very sharp. It tilted its head and gradually landed its gaze on the long box. Squawk! Su Hao opened the lid of the box. In an instant, a rich red light spread out, and the surrounding temperature rose significantly. Waves of heat rushed towards him in an instant. Is this thing going to be strung together and hung on its body? Just as when he was thinking about it, he saw the Dazed Crow pick up the nameless red feather. He thought that the Dazed Crow wanted to swallow the feather, but it didn't. Instead, it held it in its mouth, brought it to its chest, and rubbed it. The whole nameless red feather actually disappeared into the feathers in front of its chest. Instantly, the luster of feathers on the Dazed Crow seemed to have become much more beautiful. On the surface, its charm had gained 1 point. But what was the use of being charismatic? How do you feel? Squawk! Well, it didn't absorb it and is still wearing it, but the red light and high temperature coming from the nameless red feather are gone. That's enough. As for the other changes, they are still quite subtle. He glanced at the data of the Dazed Crow. For the time being, the power of its unique skill of fire increased by 1, its resistance of feathers to fire increased by 3, its resistance to energy of other attributes increased by 1, and there were other insignificant effects as well. At this moment, Butterfly came to. A series of pearls followed behind it, flying through the air like a pearl dragon. 3 spiritual pearls, 1 mirage energy orb, and 1 ball-shaped light element crystal. And now, there was going to be another one. It could claim the title of treasure collector. Here. Su Hao took out the ordinary transformation bead. Look at the gift I brought you. Transformation bead, you have something to study again. Butterfly. Do you like it? If you do, wear it on yourself. Butterfly. +1. But it still picked up the pearl and held it in its hand to examine it. At first, it frowned and was thinking. The 2 tentacles on its head kept spinning like antennae. After a moment, it seemed to have understood something. It nodded from time to time and shook its head from time to time. A few minutes later, the transformation bead circled around Butterfly's body, while it closed its eyes and stretched out a finger, continuously manifesting and manifesting. In an instant, Butterfly's eyes opened. Su Hao saw a string of flames suddenly appearing on its finger. It wasn't a unique skill, but Wood element spiritual force was changed into fire element spiritual force. In just a few minutes, it had already figured out how to use the transformation bead. Well, as expected of the butterfly that he cultivated. He asked again, "Can you burn it more?" Butterfly returned to its original appearance from the previous size of a palm. It stretched out another finger and pressed its 2 fingers together. Its left hand was on its right wrist, while the transformation pearl was held in its left palm. A cluster of flames emerged from the tips of its 2 fingers before gradually expanding. It only expanded to the size of a fist and became a small fireball because it couldn't expand any more. As expected, the change in nature alone is relatively weak, but since both the physical evolution and the cloud dream evolution involve changes, it means that the transformation pearl has been of great help to it. He looked at Butterfly. "Come on, let's go, I'm optimistic about you." Butterfly, gurgle, 3. The next day, Su Hao, Wang Qi, Zhang Zaihoqi and the other official members followed Instructor Ma and a Dragon City University instructor to the most mysterious cultivation venue in the university campus, the Pure Pool, to receive the last reward as the champion. Everyone brought one of their sprites along. Some people brought their trump cards, while others didn't. They wanted to give the opportunity to their second-tier sprites which were about to break through to extraordinary. Su Hao brought his dumb unicorn. Having been stuck at a bottleneck for a long time, the dumb unicorn, which was gradually reduced to a second or third tier sprite, could get a chance to become stronger in the pure pool. "We're here," the instructor from Dragon City University said. At this moment, they were in an ordinary hall. The hall was empty except for some chairs for resting. In front of the hall was a closed door with the words Pure Pool hanging on it. On the walls on both sides of the door, there were transparent glass windows that allowed one to see what was inside. The area inside wasn't big, like a pressure room. There were crystal walls all around, and there was only a small pool in the center. The pool water was silent. He couldn't tell at all that this was the most precious pure pool in Dragon City University. In the hall, the instructor from Dragon City University looked at them and asked, "Whose sprite is going first?" Chapter 264, Dumb Unicorn, Extraordinary. There was a mentor guarding the pure lake of Dragon City all year round. The one who spoke was an instructor surnamed Wang. He looked like he was already in his 50s or 60s. Every time the pure pool is opened, it can only accommodate one sprite. The materials invested are also different according to the attributes of the sprite, so, which one of you is going first? His gaze swept across the 5 sprites in front of him. Wang Qi, Zhang Zaihoqi and the others looked at one another. "I'll do it," Zhang Zaihoqi said. "My sprite is an extraordinary. It doesn't need to break through. Let it take the lead to do some research." Among the 5 people and 5 sprites, only Zhang Zaihoqi brought his trump card. That goat horn immortal. Looks like Senior Jiang's strategy is to gather resources and create an opportunity for the goat horn immortal to break through to monarch rank. Su Hao thought in secret. The goat horn immortal wasn't a sprite with very high potential, but Senior Jiang's one had pretty high talent. It was also the disciple of Senior Wu's sprite, a monarch rank goat horn immortal, which it received guidance from, so it walked a very similar path. The probability of breaking through to monarch rank in the future wasn't low either. After confirming that the first sprite was goat horn immortal, the instructor surnamed Wang instructed a few staff members to start preparing. At the upper end of the pure pool, a certain opening was revealed. Countless precious materials were thrown in and they fell into the pool with a plop before disappearing instantly. Su Hao saw that the pure pool was changing at a speed visible to the naked eye after eating the materials. It was no longer lifeless. The water in the pool became bright as it shined under the light. There were also waves of dense mist on the surface of the pool. That was spiritual energy that had turned into water mist. It seemed that as soon as the precious materials fell into the pure pool, the energy contained in them would be immediately stimulated. After waiting for a while, the door leading to the pure pool opened. In an instant, rich spiritual energy rushed towards them, as if they had drunk a bottle of iced cola on a hot summer day. One word, awesome. Let your sprite in, hurry. The older instructor urged. The goat horn immortal took a few steps forward and entered. The metal door buzzed and closed again. At this moment, the people outside could see that the goat horn immortal had already stepped into the pool until the pool water submerged to its waist. The instructor in charge of the pure pool said, "I'm going to start it. The duration is about 30 to 60 minutes. He pressed the control button. Instantly, the mist on the pure pool became thicker. The few special gemstones around the pure pool also lit up suddenly. The water in the pool rose abruptly, high in the middle and low all around, like a pot lid, covering the whole goat horn immortal in a very bad shape. Boiled goat horn immortal in a pool. At this moment, the goat horn immortal stood still and kept circulating its spiritual force. Some of its aura dissipated through the special walls and glass windows. The mist also gradually stirred inside. Sprouts broke out of the ground around the pool water. I can feel that it has absorbed a large amount of energy and is becoming stronger. Some of the impurities accumulated from the cultivation materials in the past have also been expelled. When we go back, I estimate that my goat horn immortal can develop to an extraordinary high stage without facing any bottlenecks. Zhang Zihoqi sounded very happy. After approximately 47 minutes, the water in the pure pool slowly descended and calmed down again. Clearly, in the judgment of the pure pool system, the purification of the goat horn immortal had already been completed. Buzz! When the door opened again, dense mist spewed out, but it wasn't as dense as before. Without a doubt, a lot of the precious materials inside had already been consumed. The second sprite that went in to take a bath and enjoy the sauna steam was Wang Qi demonic flame pig. After 44 minutes, not only did it purify its spiritual force, mental strength, and flames, it also used the opportunity to break through to extraordinary level in one go. Instantly, the demonic flame pig erupted with extraordinary power. Flames shrouded the pool water like clouds and hit the crystal walls around it. Fortunately, the materials in the whole room were very special. The uncontrollable shock waves of energy during the breakthrough didn't cause any damage to the pure pool or the whole large room. The third sprite, the fourth sprite. The sprites of Senior Chinya and a certain senior also broke through in the pure pool one after another. They were originally at the limit of elite levels, so they took a shorter time than Goat Horn Immortal to absorb and purify in the pool, but they gained more because they used this opportunity to break through. After a while, it was finally time for the dumb unicorn. Throw in water element materials, the old instructor Wang said. After a moment, he looked at Su Hao and his horse before saying, "You can go in now." The dumb unicorn, which had already walked dozens and hundreds of rounds around the hall, couldn't stand it anymore. The moment the door opened, it ran in with a neigh. Mist filled the surface of the pool. Water element spiritual energy condensed into water droplets that dripped down drop by drop. Instructor Wang pressed the button. The pool water, which wasn't considered deep, rose again, enveloping the dumb unicorn. The essence contained in the pool water was constantly absorbed, and as time passed, the light gradually faded. Minutes and seconds passed by. It was the 40th minute. In the past, at this time, the signs of other sprites breaking through were already very obvious. An aura burst forth, and strange phenomena appeared. But Su Hao's water cloud horse seemed to be unusually calm. Wang Qi and the others took a few more looks and were a little worried. The breakthrough couldn't have failed, right? At this moment, the system of the pure pool had yet to judge the purification, and the modification was still ongoing. The time continued to pass. It reached 50 minutes, 55 minutes, 60 minutes. It had already exceeded the estimated time limit, but there was still movement in the pool water. Mentor Ma couldn't help but ask, "There's no problem, right? There's no problem with that little rascal, it's doing very well." Wang instructor said with a bit of a gritting tone. He lowered his head and looked at the control screen in front of him. There were lines of data on it. Some determined the degree of the sprite's purity, while others showed the consumption of precious materials. At this moment, the consumption of precious materials was already more than half, but it was still increasing at an extremely fast speed. Usually, sprites would only consume 1/3 to half of the precious materials, the rest could be scooped up and saved for the next time. But at this moment, the energy contained in the precious materials was constantly being consumed, and couldn't be stopped. Old instructor Wang's expression darkened. Suddenly, movement finally appeared in the pure pool. Water droplets surged, and an invisible aura rose abruptly. A blue figure leaped out of the pool, bringing the water with it. "Nay!" A cry rang out, and the pressure dissipated. The signs of breaking through to the extraordinary level finally appeared. Wang heaved a sigh of relief. It's finally almost done purifying. In front of him, about 40% of the precious material's energy was gone in an instant like a broken dam. At this moment, in a cloud formed by dense spiritual energy, the dumb unicorn had also completed its final breakthrough. Water streams erupted from the pool, and thousands of water droplets floated in mid-air. Like countless cannonballs, they hit the crystal walls and produced banging sounds. Even the glass windows seemed to tremble. In just a moment, the dumb unicorn withdrew its might. It opened its mouth and sucked in the substantial spiritual energy cloud. It burped. A water cloud horse covered in scales appeared in everyone's eyes, looking more handsome than before. Sizzle! The metal door opened. There was no dense mist, only a water blue figure rushed out. It came to Su Hao's side and rubbed itself against him while breathing out cold air. At this point, the purification of the 5 sprites concluded successfully. Mentor Ma said a few polite words to express his gratitude. Suddenly, he saw the old instructor swaying around, holding his chest while looking very uncomfortable. He couldn't help but ask, "Are you all right?" "No, it's all right," said Wang instructor. His eyes couldn't help but look at the water cloud horse, which had drained the energy from the pure pool. He was stunned. Why are there horns on its head?" As soon as instructor Wang finished speaking, many people looked over and realized that a pair of dark blue horns had grown out of the water cloud horse's head at some point. It was a bewildering scene. Seeing this, Su Hao pondered for a moment before saying, "Well, I think it might not be a water cloud horse, but some kind of sprite that looks like a water cloud horse. Yes, it's a new form of sprite. That's why it broke through to extraordinary level before I came up with the evolution plan." Wang Qi and the other students. Instructor Ma. A certain middle-aged instructor, uncovered his bad heart. Chapter 265, Sky Lake. On the way back, Su Hao was dealing with the curiosity of the seniors. He was also observing the horns on dumb unicorn's head. Probably, dragon horns. At this point, the dumb unicorn was still in the evolved form of the water unicorn beast. The bloodline concentration in its data column had already increased greatly. It caused a slight change in its form. Well, thanks to the power of the pure pool and the hard work put in by the dumb unicorn, the breakthrough went very smoothly. Before the dumb unicorn entered the pool, he was actually 99% confident. After coming out of the pure pool, he could immediately arrange its evolution. This was because regardless of whether the pure pool had any effect on the purified bloodline, it couldn't run away from breaking through to the extraordinary level. And as long as it broke through, under the stimulation, the difference in the concentration level of the bloodline could also be filled up. But the pure pool can purify the bloodline, so before the dumb unicorn broke through, the concentration of the water Kylan bloodline was already greater than 30%, and after its breakthrough, it reached 39.6%. It's much higher than the evolution conditions. The excess wasn't wasted. The higher its foundation, the higher its bloodline concentration would naturally be after evolution. The benefits obtained during the evolution ritual would also correspondingly increase. The materials needed for its evolution have been prepared, and I've also chosen the location. Next, it's time for its evolution. Whale Island's school team rested for another 2 days in the League Village. 2 days later, a private plane stopped at a parking apron in the campus and picked up Heavenly King Buletin, Mentor Ma, Senior Wang Qi, and the others. Su Hao didn't leave with them. He rode the dumb unicorn towards a city hundreds of kilometers away from Dragon City. There was a new world entrance there, opposite it was a special area. It was the evolution venue specially selected for the dumb unicorn. It was more suitable than evolving in Whale Island University. Whoosh! Wind whistled past the protective shield. It was his first time riding a dumb unicorn for such a long distance, so he was more cautious. He turned on the cell phone's navigation and ran along the national road. Well, he ran in midair above the national road to ensure that he wouldn't make too much of a mistake and wouldn't end up in a certain deep forest even if he took the wrong path. He was also particular with the flying height, setting it around dozens to hundreds of meters in the air. At this height, he could clearly see the road below. After hiding within a layer of misty fog, he concealed his figure so as not to attract the attention of cars and pedestrians on the road. He would feel guilty if other people were distracted after seeing a flying horse and ended up in a car accident. At the moment, there are no guidelines regarding sprite flight in Dragon Nation and the entire Union. I don't know when it will be released. Times were improving. Now, there were also many sprites which could fly fast, and have strong endurance. After the upgrade of the dumb unicorn ride, the duration of the journey had gotten much faster. The mountains below rose and fell, retreating quickly from his vision. After riding it for more than 2 hours and having dumb unicorn lower its altitude, he finally saw a high-speed toll station with the words "Welcome Home" written on it. The dumb unicorn flew past the toll station and headed straight for a certain place on the east side of Xiang'an City. "We're here." Above the entrance palace hung a line of large words, "White Cloud City welcomes you." Su Hao took a few glances and walked forward. Behind him, his 3 sprites, Dazed Crow, Big Fat Bear, and Dumb Unicorn, followed him out of the exit. Butterfly was already lying on top of his head. The Bright Night Spirit was too weak, so it was temporarily useless and had returned with the school team. Su Hao had already set up a large amount of summer homework for it. After he was done with this trip, he would go back and check on it. "Let's go." He climbed onto the dumb unicorn, patted the big fat bear which was looking around, and grabbed it. Together, they walked out of the palace and arrived at another grand building only a few hundred meters away from the entrance, the Explorer Building. Explorers was the name given by the Union to classify sprite trainers who explored and developed the new world. In the past, most of the missions he saw on the Union's intranet were taken in the Exploration Hall. If sprite trainers encountered anything that they needed help or consultation on, their first choice would be to go to the Exploration Hall. In the hall, there were figures in 2s and 3s, mostly elite-level sprite trainers who formed teams. There was no such tense atmosphere unlike in the war zone. The sprite trainers came from White Cloud City, Green Blue Town, and other places, and their words were all about exploration, treasures, gains, and so on. "Did you hear? Red Lotus Corporation is hiring again. They said they discovered a large-scale spiritual jade mine. It's said that pseudo-monarch rank sprites always appear in the eastern chaotic stone forest. It's best not to go there. There's an examination station in the north that hasn't sent back any information for a month. The hall has already issued a mission. Do you want to take it?" Su Hao listened to their conversations and found it quite refreshing. He never had the experience of forming a team or going into a dungeon. He didn't have it in the past, and probably not in the future either. After all, I'm already a master-level sprite trainer. My sprites had formed their own battle team, and I can't go back anymore. I need to team up with others to fight monsters. He came to a window and knocked. "Hello, I want to buy a map of White Cloud City." A slightly chubby face appeared behind the window. It was an ordinary person who worked in White Cloud City. She looked at Su Hao and said, "Our maps here are categorized into D, C, B, and A levels. The range and details are all different. B and A level maps can only be purchased with corresponding authorization. Do you want to? Just give me the most expensive one." "Sir, that requires level 7 authorization." "Ah." Su Hao took out his card and swiped it. Then, he took the map from the dumbstruck staff member, waved his sleeves and left. He found a private room in a cafe and sat down. Then, he spread out the map. The geographical environment, danger level, powerful sprites, and other information appeared in his eyes. There were many maps that were drawn by Master level and Heavenly King level sprite trainers, inside. The further away from the city, the less recorded information there was. However, there were also special areas that were specially explored, so they were more detailed. He wanted to go to one of those places. Sky Lake. Su Hao's gaze landed on the vast lake in the north. The lake water in the Sky Lake is very special. If its nature isn't bad, it will be very helpful for Dumb Unicorn's ritual. There's just one problem. The Sky Lake is too far away. The distance from White Cloud City to Sky Lake was at least 1,000 kilometers. Even in Dragon Nation, it would take several hours to turn on the navigation system and ride the Dumb Unicorn for a long distance, let alone in the New World. With my current strength, it shouldn't be too dangerous, but I might get lost. After all, he never had any experience traveling far in the New World before. He was a little unconfident. He thought for a long while and started to operate the Sprite commandeering wristband again. Why don't I get a free ride and earn a little extra income? The crowdfunder appeared again. Currently, I'm accepting ideas for Dumb Unicorn's advanced evolution and battle methods, etc. They can be water element, ice element,